Hey everyone, last week we had a question about the negative effects of video games, and I gave my answer, but I was really thinking about it a little while after, and I decided to do an extra special episode today of Daily IELTS English, where I'll show you briefly some of the techniques that I use in my classes to teach my students to speak better English and get those higher scores on their IELTS tests. I'll discuss the technique first, and then I'll give a demonstration. So last week's question was, what are the negative effects of video games? And I didn't like this question because it assumes that video games can only be bad. And I felt bad about it afterwards, not because I'm a video game player, but because I know some of the positive effects of video games. And I even know some people who have become successful because of video games. So I'll look today at rejecting the question, discussing my beliefs, and then finally answering the question at the end. So if you get a question like this one, what are the negative effects of video games? And it kind of hits you wrong. You think, well, I don't think they're that bad. It sounds like the person asking the question thinks that video games are bad, and I disagree. So I would start by just saying, I actually think, or I actually believe. Now, the way that you stress actually is really important. I actually believe that video games can be a good thing. So it's very simple, but the point is that now you've moved the question more towards your opinion, and you're going to relax more. It's going to be easy for you to explain your answer better. Now, as I was thinking about this question, I eventually did start to think, okay, well, yes, video games can be good, but there are problems. So once I'm finished going through my answer of why I think video games are actually a positive thing, I would then get to answer the question about the negative effects. And the phrase I use there is simple, that being said. A more advanced form of however or but. So I've given my argument, and then I say, that being said, and I give the negatives. And as always, a nice simple technique is to then give examples using the word if. And in this case, I'll be stressing the word if. Word stress is very important. I'll stress the word if and then let my intonation fall. If and fall. As always, please make sure you put your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to see what you think. So the question is, what are the negative effects of video games? And I actually think video games can be good for you. I know that there is research that talks about how they can be used to relieve stress, how they can be used to even treat PTSD in people who have been traumatized. In fact, I even know a guy who played a lot of video games when he was younger, and he even quit his job to play video games full time. And this was 20 years ago, before it was popular. Now he's a successful game designer. He even created his own game, which is now available on PS4 and Microsoft. So I don't think that video games are automatically negative. That being said, I do know a lot of people who did play a lot of video games and then did try to become video game designers and were not successful. I suppose it gets negative if you have a severe addiction. I've heard something like more than 20 hours a week is addiction, and that's problematic. So if you start failing at school, if you start performing poorly in your job, then I suppose that it's a problem. Particularly if you're a parent and you've got a young child who's going to school, he needs or she needs to develop a strong mind. And if the video games are just there for mindless entertainment, or if you're just using video games for some sort of gratification, then I think it's problematic. All right, very simple. There it is. Reject the question, I actually think, and then get back to the point, that being said. I hope you found this helpful, you guys. As I said, I'd love to see your thoughts down there in the comments below. And as always, please remember language is a habit, so make sure that you get lots of practice. These ideas really only work in the test if they are natural, if they're a habit. So you're not trying to think of this while you're speaking, it just comes out. So practice till you get it right, and then keep going till you can't get it wrong, and I'll see you tomorrow.